Hello, in this video, I'm going to demonstrate the technique of dry brushing. Dry brushing is exactly what it sounds like. You're using a dry brush, no water, to apply paint to your painting. Now, what I usually do is I dip in. I'm going to dip in too much. So even though my brush is dry, that's a lot of paint and it's a little bit goopier, right? So usually what I like to do is dip my brush in just to a tiny amount of paint, and then I often test it off to the side on a piece of paper before going to my painting because I don't want globs. Okay, now why dry brush? Well, it's a different effect, and I'll show it in a small painting I made last week. It adds another layer of paint and sort of a texture and lets the paint from below show through. What I'm going to do just to practice here is fill this whole page with dry brush marks just to get the hang of it. And I'm using usually that low 45, maybe this is a little bit higher, but low 45-degree angle. And I can play with larger amounts of paint. I can go a longer distance. I have a little bit more paint. I can also, dry brushing could be a little bit of this scrubbing, sometimes called scumbling. You can kind of scrub it around. Okay, I'm going to go to a slightly larger brush, just a cheap house brush. So I'm just filling the whole page, getting comfortable with this technique. Again, like I said, it's really good if you're working on a painting to test it out off to the side to make sure you don't have too much paint on your brush. Not really showing up. Okay, there we go. So I'm dragging it across the surface and it's going to pick up on whatever paint texture is below, which you'll see in the next painting, a previous painting that I made that I'm going to add more color to. Okay, so that is dry brush. And here is my painting that I did last week. It was painting with a palette knife on an amoodle, and I did a lot of Sgrafitto work here. There's a lot of texture. So I'm going to go over the surface of this painting using the dry brush method and to highlight certain areas. So I'm going to drag across here and see if I can pick up on that texture. So I'm picking up on all the ridges of my Sgrafitto, and I can bring it up slowly. Now I'm going to scrub a little bit. I want to get in there more. Just adds another layer of interest. Okay, I'll switch to another color now. I'm going to go round brush now. What I'm liking is it's a thin layer and it's still maintaining that transparency. Now I'm scrubbing more. This one I think is going to show up the most. I'm actually doing multiple layers of dry brush here. And this is great to do on these little practice pieces of paper in terms of how colors interacting and just getting comfortable with the technique. Okay, so that is dry brushing. Practice and more layers on a previous abstract study.